I'm back again. So this is my regular scheduled weekly stream. I'm not sure whether I'll be adding more regular streams in addition to this one, but we'll see how it goes, see if I can find some time to do that. I've been doing a fair bit of streaming just at ad hoc times, but it'd be nice to sort of formalise that a little bit, perhaps, to make it easier to manage and things like that. But the first thing I'm going to do on this part of the stream is just to show that I slightly changed my mind regarding this the ridge down the front here. What I've actually done is I have gone ahead and added some extra polygons, just an extra strip. So I duplicated this line of edges here. So I took these edges, they were sort of attached in the center there, duplicated them, and then pulled these ones a little bit away from the central line, and then joined them all up to just fill in that gap there, just to make it a little bit more formalized, shall we say. Excuse me. So right, I'm pretty sure that I'm basically done with the modeling of the crab. The only thing I want to do before I move on is to change these eyes slightly, and to make a socket of some sort so that they can kind of sit in there. So what I might do actually is so what I'd done before, a minute offline, was I actually moved the eyes onto a separate layer. But I think what I'm going to do is actually join them back on again, so that they're all part of the same object again, to enable me to. Oh, actually, maybe not. Maybe I'll. Yeah, no, I'm going to join them back on together. Now, how do I do that? I've forgotten now. Is it Control J or is it Shift J? Yeah, that's joined them. Although it's now called them eyes rather than spider crab, so I'll just rename that spider crab. Whoops, spider crab. Okay, cool. So we're back to having them as one mesh. So what I want to do is perhaps actually move this over here, so that they're a bit closer together, and then rotate them a little bit, so that they're. Well, actually, let me just grab the base of the. No, that's not what I wanted. It's that one there, and just drag that in this way, so that there's maybe about there, something like that, so they're a bit more obvious along those lines. Maybe pull them in a little. There we go. The reason I want to do that is just so that I've got, if I wanted to animate these, having them sort of slightly more sideways would give me the option to kind of have them dip in and out of the sockets, which I'm going to create behind in this sort of area. And in fact, what I might do is pull the whole lot this way. Oops. Grab all of the eye, pull them out slightly, so they're protruding a bit more, and that will give me some room behind that I can manipulate. And let me just grab that. In fact, what I might do is just flatten that out a little. Let's pull this vertex down this way. Just flatten these two out as well. Doesn't matter a huge amount. Just make it a little bit flatter along that edge, to make it easier if I need to move that around a bit. Okay. Yeah, you can see it sort of poking through a little, in fact. So let's pull the whole thing back a little bit more. Just so there's plenty of room for me to manipulate the space behind it. Okay. So with that done, I want to create this socket in this sort of general area. So what's the best way of doing that? I think what I'm going to do is I was experimenting offline a little bit with beveling. This is a technique that involves selecting some edges and then you hit Control B, and then what happens is that effectively splits the edges that you were on and turns them into a sort of duplicates them and well, creates a bevel basically. And so you end up with this effect. It's a bit like extruding, but it just splits the whole thing. I'm wondering if that's not really what I want. Maybe if I just do one at a time. No, that's not really it either. No, you see it's going to end up all sorts of weird. What's the best plan? Perhaps I should just do what I did before and create a few extra polygons by doing that, and then maybe, so this is going to be a similar technique to what I did with the legs here, but I think I'm going to need more than just that one area. So I mean really this whole area could do with I'm just going to experiment a little bit and see what happens. So bear with me for a few moments. Extrude, shrink. Is that going to work? Ah, yes. Yes, that might do what I want it to do. I'm just going to try one quick thing. What happens if I insert? Yeah, the same sort of thing happens, but the middle one doesn't shrink. So let's try just doing that then. Okay. So there's some slightly weird shapes appearing now because of the way I've shrunk that down. But we can deal with that one face at a time, I think, in due course. I'd like to round this off a little so that it's not so obviously kind of square. So I'm going to just pull that up a little, I think, because I want the socket to be up here somewhere, closer to where the eye is, and pull that out a little, so that we're still a bit smoother than before. What I might do is just drag that one up a little. I'm going to need to just check this periodically to make sure that I'm not doing anything weird to the shape. Just going to circularize this a little, just do it manually really, because it gives me a bit more control. Going to grab that one. Pull this one in. Okay, how are we getting on here? I might just drag this whole thing down a little, so I'm lining it up more or less with the socket behind. Pull that in slightly. I might do some more fine tuning of this after I've textured it and everything else, but maybe down a little bit more. A little bit. There we go. I think I'm going to pull this in a little. Problem is I've got this. I've got the eye right in front of where I need to view, so I could hide that. I suppose that would work, but it's helpful to have it there. I might create another ring of polygons here. In fact, let's hide that temporarily, and so I've inadvertently, because I've selected this point behind, it's hidden those faces as well. So let's let's unselect that and do that there. Drag that up a little. Just checking that it's not I've not distorted it too badly. Yeah, creating a loop around here would be helpful. So let's see if I can do that this way. Just select all those, and then extrude, shrink. Nope, that is definitely not what I wanted to do. What's the best plan here? Should I do it manually? Maybe that's the best plan. Yeah, that'll work. Just creating a little bit of extra geometry like I did with the mandible area, so that when I pull this central section in, it's going to deform in a sort of slightly more reasonable way. So what I'm going to do, I think, is literally just pull that in. Now, is it Control? No, that's not what I want. Is it plus? I'm trying to think. There was a way of expanding your selection, but I've forgotten what it is. Something about plus and minus. It's not Shift, not Alt. Control Shift. That is definitely not what I wanted to do. Everything's hidden. All right. Not entirely sure what I've done there. Okay. Let's not spend too long messing around with Blender shortcuts that I'm only half remembering. Okay, so let's see what we got. So I'm going to actually go to side view so that I could pull that in like this, and then I'm going to select the additional set of faces around here, and I'm going to pull it in again a little bit more. Okay, that's not too bad. I think I will tidy up the edges a little. I think this vertex here needs to come out slightly. Let's smooth that off. That's not too bad. I think actually I might pull this whole area back down still a bit more. I think this vertex here needs to come up a little, or maybe this one needs to come down a little. Doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's probably okay. So let's just unhide everything, and Shift L unhide that, and rehide all the rest of it. So that's gonna. So those are gonna sort of this will enable them to be sort of docked, as it were. They can wiggle around and sort of plop back into their sockets there. So what I might want to do actually is just pull this down behind the stalk, so that what I might do is move the stalk a little again, so that it's in a bit more sort of a slightly easier place to manage. If I'm just going to drag that up a little to here, say. So then I can pull this whole area in, so that it's got some like a trench that it can kind of fold into. And I might make this a little sharper by pulling this edge in a little as well. So let me do that. Grab all of those, shrink those in a little, just to sharpen up that socket a little bit more. It's become a bit distorted around the edge here, so I'll tidy that up in a minute. But I think what I'm going to do is grab this lot, hide that again, and then just pull this down to form a trench. So pull that in a little that way. Perhaps if I could do with a bit more geometry here. I'm wondering if I should split this just to create a little bit more geometry that I can hook up to here. Give me a little bit more control over the shape of this area. I'm going to need to join these to somewhere, but I'm going to worry about that in a second. Pull that in a little. Perhaps actually these need splitting as well, in fact. Again, I'm more or less making this up as I go along. I don't know if this is a good idea. I'm just trying to make some shapes here that enable me to distort this area a little bit more, because at the moment that's not looking particularly. In fact, I've done that wrong. Actually, no, that is all right. Not completely convinced by this, you know. Aha, I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. Yeah, I mean, it's not great, I have to admit. I'm not particularly pleased with this. Move to the normals. Ooh, making a right mess of this. Something funny going on here. That's what had happened. I'd accidentally gone out of perspective mode. That's why. Right. So let's try that properly this time. There we go. Okay. I mean, this is now pretty horrible. It's a bit of a puzzle. Really, what I want to do is re-sculpt this area so that I can actually. I need some stuff going across like that, really. So perhaps what I'm going to do is dissolve these, which wasn't entirely what I wanted. So let's just rejoin those up. Okay, so now what I can do is edge slide these guys up there, and in fact, so how is that? Okay, well, let's just move it up like that. Hopefully that will make the trench a little smoother. Again, it doesn't have to be super accurate or anything, and I'm running the risk of spending too long just messing about and not really achieving anything. I think I'm going to just push these two back a little. There we go. I think that is going to work all right. Looks all right on this side. I mean, there's some distortions going around here, but I'm hoping that the texturing will help with that. So at this point, it's probably about as good as I'm going to make it, realistically. Oops, that's the wrong one. There we go. So now I can wiggle his eyes in and out with the animations if I want to. That looks okay. He's got somewhere for his eye stalks to sit. But if I am going to animate these eye stalks, I'm going to want to add a little bit more geometry to the edges of them. So that's very simple to do. Just do a couple of loop cuts. Just add a couple there. I think I might need to move some of this stuff because it's a little bit weird at this corner here because I've bent it round quite far. So probably what I want to do is rejig some of this stuff. Just to even that out a little bit more. And then probably just slide this whole edge up a little. Let's do it with this. Just make this a little bit more even. Neaten it up a little. It's probably slightly better. So the main reason I'm doing this is for when I'm animating, it will be better to have something that I can kind of bend with these vertices here. So just adding a couple of loop cuts around the diameter of the eye stalks will help with that a little. With any luck, that should work reasonably well. Okay, so with all that done, I think I'm going to move on to UV mapping, which is a very complicated business with something like this. But let's make a start and see where we end up. Now, is it worth it at this point to apply the mirror modifier? I think. Yes, I think I'm going to. So before I do that, let's save my file. And in fact, what I might do is take a copy of this so that I've got a stage that I can come back to if I mess it up. So let's save it as my crab backup. And then back over to my original crab so that I can continue working on this. So now I'm going to apply the mirror modifier in object mode. So when I go back to edit mode, you can see now that I can manipulate vertices on this side, and it actually it's still oh, it's because I've got this X mirror on, right? There you go. That's what happens there. This is useful for when you've applied your mirror modifier, but you don't want to necessarily create new geometry, but you just want to move geometry around but keep it mirrored. So that's really useful. This is in the options menu here. But with all of the crab now in object mode with separate vertices and everything, I can UV map this so that it ends up with the whole thing, and I can make the texture asymmetrical, which will be super useful for later. So what the first thing to do when we're UV mapping is to find some suitable seams that will make the process of unwrapping a bit easier to do. So if we go into edge mode here, the most obvious thing to do in the first instance is to select the leg area, the leg roots here, and that will enable me to separate out the legs from the rest of the mesh, so that I can unwrap the main body, and I can unwrap the legs separately. So what I'm going to do is Control E, mark seam. They should now get indicated as with this sort of red marking to indicate that that's going to be a seam in the UV map. I'm going to do the same thing over here with these guys. So select those loops, select that loop and that loop, Control E, mark seam. Now when I unwrap these legs, I want them to effectively, I want to create a seam all the way down the length, so that it will unwrap like the skin of a sausage, just sort of unpeeling. So let me select that. You see, the problem here is now that it's selected all of this here, so I just need to deselect those using Shift. I don't want to select those. So that's going to have a seam all the way along the edge, right to the tip, which is exactly what I want. Control E, mark seam. So that will then, when I unwrap, that will split this leg and unroll it so that it's flat in the UV plane, so that's good. This here, this will probably work reasonably well if I just literally do that. Yeah, it's just taken one additional edge here, so I'm going to unselect that. See how that looks. It goes all the way to the tip. Yep, that looks good. Mark that as a seam. I have to do this on the other side as well, of course, so let's do that while I'm here. Unselect the ones I don't want. Mark seam. Whoops. There we go. Mark seam. And I'll just carry on working my way forwards. Now this is interesting because it's taken all the way across the front and under his belly and all the way up the other leg. So that's actually sort of what I want, but I don't want these ones in the middle here. So let's just unselect those. Then I'll get two legs for one here when I do mark seam. There we go, it's done both. And if I'm lucky, yeah, same thing on this side, so that's cool. Good. Now if I discover that I've accidentally put a seam where I don't want it, you can do the same thing but clear seam, and that will clear the seam from your model. So where's this going to end up? If this goes, let's select that. Where's it going to end up? It's going to come all the way up to the tip of the claw here. That's probably okay. If I move it around to the front. It's probably okay. So let's do the same thing, unselect these. I'll deal with the body separately in a minute because that's going to require some special attention. Mark seam. And I'm going to need to spend a bit more time on the front here as well, these claws. I think because that's going to unwrap in a weird way if I leave it as it stands. I'm wondering actually if I should do this edge here rather than the edge that I've marked. Because it slightly twists a bit. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's not a big problem. Okay. So how do I want this to unwrap? So if I just unwrap that as it is, this bit here will become sort of compressed and collapsed in on itself. And And in actual fact, I'm going to have to deal with these as well. So the best way to do these ones, I think, is going to be to mark a seam down the back side of that there. And then when that unwraps, it's going to unwrap it along this line here. This is going to fold out, so that may not look particularly good. So what I want to do is try and keep the seams hidden if possible, but that's not always the best plan, especially if you've got a jagged front edge here. Perhaps that would be better to mark as a seam along this jagged edge, so when it folds out, it will unfold along the back side there. So perhaps that would be a better plan, because if I unfold it along this edge here, it's going to end up all distorted and weird. So maybe I will do it like this instead, and just mark it along the front there. And there. And there as well. So that then when it unfolds, it will just fold along this. It's hard to see really, but it will fold just along this flat edge that I've got embedded in the claw there. So let's do that. I can always redo this bit if necessary. Do that one and that one. And that one and that one. Yep. Mark seam. Now, what I might do is just hide these guys here. So I think what I need to do is mark the edge along here. Yeah, that'll work. Just mark that there. So what I want to do is to split so the claw unwraps itself. So it will unwrap around the back here. So you'll end up with this part of the claw on the opposite side to this part of the claw. That hopefully will become obvious when I do the unwrapping, and I might need to tinker with this. It should unwrap okay. Yeah, it should, because what effectively will happen is this bit will stay all connected, and it will sort of unfold around that edge there. So that will work. That should work reasonably well. I'm going to try and replicate the same thing on this side. So, which side did I, just so I'm consistent. I marked it on the outside edge. Not that it matters particularly, but you know, nice to be symmetric. Grab all of that and that and the little bit at the end. There and there. Mark the seam. Same with the top. Oops. There we go. And that, whoops, that's the wrong one. Oh goodness me, selecting everything that except the one I want. Don't want that one. Oh, come on, there we go, that's better. Mark the seam. And let's hide these. And mark the edge here. Mark the seam. Okay. Hopefully that's all the legs done. We shall find out shortly when we unwrap it all. So as far as unwrapping the body is concerned, there's two ways to go about this. I could either unwrap it sort of down the front or down the back, or I could go around the sides here. I may need to do a combination of both. I'm going to need to separate these out as well, so perhaps I should just do that while I'm here. So I need to really cut these off at the base. So let's see if I can find the loop there. Yep, and the loop there. Mark those. So that will separate out. That will cause the mandibles to pop out as a separate piece, and then I can unwrap them individually. So really, what I want to do is probably mark a seam along the edge here, so that these unwrap. I'm just going to do this incrementally, I think. So I need to join this up really so that it unwraps itself. So it might just be that one there that I need. Will that work? So what I want to happen is for this top piece to sort of, for this bit to unfold. So I may need to come underneath here and split this off as well. It's going to be a bit of trial and error on this one, I think, because it's not what I want to do. I'm going to have to see how this goes, but in the meantime I'm just going to duplicate this on the other side. I think it was that one there, wasn't it? So effectively what you're trying to do is kind of visualize where it's going to unfold itself onto the flat UV plane to give you something at least reasonably shaped. So what's going to happen when this unwraps is that these two pieces are going to get separated out because I've completely disconnected them from the base mesh, and these will end up in a different part of the UV map, which means that the mouth area has got some space to kind of expand into, so that's fine. I'm going to need to do something similar with these eye stalks. So the best place to do a split is along this edge here, I should think, hiding behind the back. The problem I've got now is that because I've used an icosphere here, there's not an obvious place for the seam to go. So I think I've accidentally selected the wrong one. I think what I'm going to do is sort of work my way up the back of the eye. That's the wrong one. Deselect that. So that when it unwraps, it effectively sort of splits into two. It's going to kind of peel open like that. Let's mark that. I may need to extend this seam a little, but let's try it with that for now. I'm going to do the same. Oops, same on this side. Grab the wrong one there. So trying to select the correct. Oh, I've done the wrong thing there. I need to hold Shift. That's what I need to do. Shift to select those. Grab one more, I think. Mark the seam. But I think I grabbed that one as well. Right, there we go. So that's those. I think what I'm going to need to do is cut an edge all the way around the front here, because this is going to be impossible to unwrap in a sort of sensible way. So really the logical place to put a seam is all the way around the front here. So it's going to have to come all the way around. It's going to be quite tedious to... Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Legs getting in my way again. I might have to do this incrementally. Just carefully picking my way through. Tell you what, let's mark what I've done, so I don't get lost. There we go, that'll do. So I think since I've started this along this seam, the obvious thing to do is to carry on all the way around the edge and effectively separate the top from the bottom. But actually I could have it hinged effectively along the back here, so I'm going to deselect these so that when this unwraps, the top and the bottom will still be connected in the UV plane. So let's do that. And with any luck, I can blend this seam without too much trouble. So let's complete the job along the front here. Let's just mark what we've done. Now, I appear to have done something I see here, right? I've gone along the upper edge of this here and the lower edge there. So somehow I've managed to. Here's where I've made my mistake. I've gone down the wrong one here. So let's clear this seam here. Really, what I wanted to do was keep that as as a straight line as possible. That should then come through and join up with any luck with this bit here. Okay, I think that's reasonable. With any luck, this should just all sort of unwrap now with a nice hinge at the back there. Modulo anything that I've accidentally missed, that might be sufficient. So the next thing to do is to select everything. I'm going to go to the UV editing layout here. And it should just be a matter of hitting the U key to bring up the UV mapping menu and hit unwrap. That is not too bad. There's going to be a few options down here that we can tinker with. So let's see if it looks any different if I use conformal or angle based. I've got to admit that doesn't look too dissimilar, so perhaps that doesn't really matter. I've got to admit I also don't really understand the difference between these. See, fill holes. Doesn't seem to make much difference. Correct aspect. I think we want the correct aspect. So we've got a lot of. Let's go to. What are we doing here? There's a few options here. Keep UV in edit mode in sync. So let's see what we've got in terms of the pieces. So what's this piece here? So if I select face mode, right, that's one of his mandibles. Yeah, so this is what I was a bit worried about. I think the mandibles have gone a bit weird. You can see we've got overlapping polygons here, so this polygon is overlapping with this polygon. So I need to do some additional seam work. I think this is his eye. Yeah, that's his eye. His claws worked all right. That unwrapped neatly. So the other thing I would like to do, there's a neat thing you can show. Where is it now? Draw faces. Stretch. That was it. This shows where there's distortions going on. So you can see for most of it, it's not too bad. Like, all the legs are great. They've unwrapped without any problems whatsoever. There's a little bit of stretching here. Where's that? That's underneath, isn't it? Yeah, you can see it's up here. Okay, that's around the. Interestingly, that's around the body here. I might have to add an additional line here. So, because if I split that, that would enable this bit to stretch a bit more into the UV space. So let's do that. Let's just grab that one and that one. Mark the seam. Grab the whole lot, and then just unwrap it again. It's helped a little bit. There's a little bit of stretching going on here. I'm not too bothered about that because I'm sort of expecting that. and that'll be hidden behind the mandibles anyway. But definitely the thing I need to do is to deal with these mandibles, because you can see that this one seems to have unwrapped okay. So that's a bit weird. I'm not really entirely sure why one's unwrapped more cleanly than the other. Select face mode. Wonder why that is then. Maybe angle based is better. No, you see that's worse. Perhaps I have got slightly different arrangements of. Yeah, this is really messed up. So, what is it that's causing? To be honest, the bit around the back isn't a problem actually. I'm not too bothered by that. Yeah, that's super weird. Why is that then? Why have they unwrapped in such different ways? Because they've got the same seams. Perhaps I need to do a little bit more work on these before I try unwrapping again. The rest of it I'm reasonably pleased with. I think this has worked all right. What is this bit here? Right. Okay. So one of his horns has become much bigger than the other, which is a bit odd. So what happens if I unwrap again, but choose angle instead? Yeah, you see, angle has caused these to be much better distributed, and you can see actually his claws have become a little distorted, a little stretched here, but that's probably not a big deal. So I think using angle rather than conformal is the better option. And in fact, what's happened, these are at least shaped in the same way, so that's good. And the eye stalks as well, they're shaped in the same way. So I'm going to stick with angle. But I do need to deal with these mandibles. So let me see if we've got this piece here. That's ended up all twisted underneath. So really, I could do with adding an additional seam, perhaps, to allow this to stretch around. Because what's happened is it's ending up folded under, right? So this is because this is twisted quite far around. The unwrapping has attempted to keep the sequence of polygons so that it continues up the stalk here. But really, what I need, so this line here, you can see it's actually the same as this line here. So perhaps I need to add that as a seam. Well, it's already a seam, so maybe I need to add a seam along there. Instead, to allow it to unwrap. The alternative, of course, is to just take that entire piece and connect it up. And by that I mean join this loose seam here up to the loop that I created here, and I believe this one would. See, that one doesn't quite do it, because that's actually along the top. Really hard to see that one. That's the one, and that would just take that piece from underneath. Yep, that would do it. Pretty sure. And that one there. It means I'll end up with 2 pieces, but that should be fine. So in fact, let's see what happens. Unwrap. Yeah, right, cool. So now you can see that that piece is the bit that's underneath there. So that's its own separate piece on the UV map now. This is the top bit, which is okay. It's a little distorted underneath, but you don't see these. You won't see these bits because they're underneath, so that's fine. I don't really care about those. And I think that's all right now. So I might do a little bit of rearrangement of the UV plane here, and I might increase the size of the body because the legs are taking up a lot of room, and really they don't need quite as much detail as this area here. So if I take this area, which is the main body, and I just grab it and move it over here a little. In fact, let's move it down here for now, and I'm going to grab all of these. So all the same controls work in UV space as it does in the editor, in the main 3D editor. I'm just going to chuck those up there for now, and I think what I'm going to do is select all of these other bits. Shift L. So all the legs. I'm just going to shrink those down a little bit because they don't need to be quite so big. And then I'm going to grab these ones. Just move them up here. And in fact, what I would like to do is to group these together so they're in a slightly more logical arrangement. But it sort of doesn't matter a huge amount at this stage. Just trying to create enough room for the body. What we're ultimately going to do is paint directly onto the model, but it'll be nice to if we wanted to come in here and do some separate manipulations that would maybe if we can't kind of get around the back here, for example, where the face is, I can just paint directly onto the UV map instead. But really, you want to paint on the model where you've got seams, because otherwise, if you're painting on the UV map here, I'd have to get precisely the same colours and textures here as I do here, for example, where they join up in the UV space. But if you paint directly on the model, that just takes care of it automatically for you, which is super good. But I do want the body to have a little bit more presence in the UV space, so that I've got some a bit more. I can add a bit more detail in the texture to the body compared to the legs, because that's the more important area, I think. So that's good. I'm going to grab. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab that, move it this way a little, so that I can put the. What do I want to do? I want to rotate that 180 degrees, I think. And then pull it back that way so that I can put the mandibles over here. So they're at least, you know, near where they're supposed to be. What else have we got up here? Those are the eyes. Yeah, I'll grab those as well. I'll deal with the claws in a minute. Okay, so that's all right. So where are the claws? Are these the claws here? Claws are up that end. So this is that's the main, right, that's the root of the body. Yeah, so the claws are at this end here. So these claws, I'm going to pull them over in this direction. Okay. Pull them down here. You know, it really doesn't matter too much. Just for neatness, really. So which claw is which? Is that one? Right, so this one is associated with this claw. Yep. Looking over here, you can see selecting that and that. That's the same claw here. And this one is associated with this one up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chuck these here, and I'm just going to rotate this by 90 degrees just so that it mirrors that one. Just stick it like that. Okay, now which mandible is which? So this one is the one on that side, and that should be this one here. Yep. So that's great, that's it already in the right place. So let's just put him over here, which means this one is the right one for here. I could increase the size of these in the UV space, maybe a little. I'll do that with both of these. Just chuck those there. So nicely lined up. I think this one's rotated slightly relative to the other one. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, it's more like that, isn't it? Not that it matters, but you know, makes it a bit easier to visualize. Okay, the eyes. That's that one. That's this side, I think. Yeah. So this eye stalk needs to come down here. I'm going to rotate that by minus 90 degrees, so it's pointing in roughly the right direction. And I'm going to scale. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to do it the same with this one. Minus 90 degrees. And I'm going to select both those, scale them up a little. And these mandible areas here, they've swapped around, so let's grab that. Let's chuck him there, grab that, chuck him up there. Now it's the underside of this bit here, so oh, hello. Sorry, I didn't notice you there. I use Houdini. I've not heard of that. Yes, I've not used that brush either. For cinematic stuff, I mean I use Blender for making models for games. Exclusively. I don't use it to create any cinematics or anything like that, so I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to help you with any of that side of things. I'm going to just grab both of these. Whoops, what am I doing here? That one and that one. So is it connected this way? Let's see. Yeah. So you can see that that's the seam running along there. So probably what I could have done actually is unseam this bit, but it doesn't really matter. September last year. I forget how long I've been doing this. I mean, not super long. I don't do it like a whole load, so I'm still pretty new to most of this. Let's move him around, and I think this should be. Let's just check that seam. Yep, that seam is there, and that seam is there. Cool. Let's have a look at this. Oh wow. Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair play. That's some pretty impressive work. So I take it you do mostly sculpting. I only found out about sculpting in Blender a few days ago. Mostly, wow. Okay, yeah, that's a fair amount of work. 45 to 60 hours a week. I probably only put in a few hours a week. So, yeah, I'm well behind where you are. I'm sure you're sculpting. Also, try to do VFX. Yeah, well, I mean, best of luck. That's some pretty impressive work. I'm just sort of struggling through, really. Making it up as I go along. Okay, well, I'm reasonably happy with the arrangement of stuff here. So I think the next step is to start painting onto the model. But I might do that in the next stream. I'm going to remind myself how it works, because you don't want to watch me watching YouTube videos to remind myself how these things work. So probably the best plan at this stage is for me to pause the stream. Yeah, thanks for dropping by, Isutha. Yeah, I think it does need to be good. It's a good place to start. This should be all right. I think once I start painting on here, it should be. Yeah. So well, this is why I've added the stretch mark on here. This bit I'm not too bothered about, because it's going to be hidden underneath the mandibles there. So that bit I'm not too bothered about. The rest of it is reasonably unstretched. So yeah, it's unstretched if it's blue. So this one here is all of these are okay. It's the green area where it's the green area is where it's deformed. For Blender anyway. I don't know if it's different for other models, but yeah, all of these are nice and flat. So I'm happy with those. And where it is stretched, like here, I'm not too bothered about. Yeah, it's definitely blue is okay in Blender. So yeah, I think different software is different, but yeah, these are all fine. So the fact that most of this is a dark blue, I'm pretty happy with. There's a little bit of stretching around the back here, but again, that's around the back of the model, and I'm not too worried about that. The main reason I think for that is that it's this bit around here where it's just bending a little, because my seam is sort of up on the top here, because I had to run it right the way along the edge where it's super detailed along the front there. I didn't want that to be all distorted, so I had to put the seam along the front there. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. So don't worry. I think we're all good. So yeah, the next step will be starting to paint, and I'll do that in the next stream, I think, which I may do this evening, depending on whether I've got some spare time or not. But otherwise, yeah, thanks for dropping by, Isutha. I will, with any luck, might see you again in the future. But that's it for now. I know you sort of dropped in quite last minute on the stream, so it was probably quite short for you. I've been running for about an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm just about running out of steam here. So I'm going to call it a day there. But yeah, thanks for popping by, and I'll have another stream shortly.